China launched 3 astronauts into space on board the Shenzhou 10 spacecraft last week, marking the country's 5th manned mission to space in a decade. But what has attracted widespread attention during this journey is Space Physics 101, a lesson taught by the 3 astronauts floating in space and beamed to Chinese classrooms around the country. Estimates put the number of mainland students that tuned into the live broadcast at 60 million. Western media was quick to point out that in the past, while astronauts appeared at large public events, they had little interaction with the everyday people. This new interactive classroom aboard the Shenzhou 10 seems to suggest a newfound confidence. Wang Yaping, the youngest and only female astronaut among the crew, started off the class by posing the question, "How do I know whether I have grown fat?" Wang's commander, Major General Niahai Sheng, then went to climb over a measurement device that used Newton's law of motion to gather a weight in a weightless environment. Speaking through a video link from the Shenzhou 10 manned spacecraft to a class of middle school students in Beijing, Wang demonstrated the effects of zero gravity on water and a pendulum. Wang also impressed students when she demonstrated how she could push a fellow astronaut into the wall of the module with a touch of her finger and gulp down drops of water as it floated in midair. Students were also invited to ask questions following the lesson. Topping the list were concerns about UFOs, space debris, and space sickness. Now, while the space lesson has gotten widespread positive press from the West, what are Chinese net users saying about the initiative themselves? Well, let's take a look at some Weibo comments.
I was completely drawn into Ms. Wang's physics class. If all the teachers can teach in this way, we would never have to worry about our children losing interest in studying. I think this space class was incredibly meaningful. Before, there were many astronauts sent into space, but I had no idea what they did and the reason for their trip. It was too far away from my daily life and, to be frank, boring. But the face-to-face communication between the astronauts and classrooms back on Earth allowed me to really connect to the mission this time. I remember seeing American astronauts being filmed in space conducting scientific research. Thus, I don't feel the space lesson from the Shenzhou 10 was so interesting because it isn't the first time that it's been done. I guess they must have practiced this many times on Earth before being recorded in space. For the astronauts, it must be such a treat to have a huge classroom of well-behaved students to teach. It's a pity that Wang Yaping is not a teacher but an astronaut. I am skeptical of whether the questions from students were planted beforehand. They don't feel like questions students would ask.
As a measure of the importance of the event, about 80,000 schools suspended regular activities for the event. China first sent a human into space in 2003, but is already planning to complete its space station by 2020 and sometime afterwards land a man on the moon. Now, despite the ambitious space program, China still lags behind Russia and the U.S. and is still attempting to reach milestones achieved by the 2 superpowers decades ago.